everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can find them at artistfirst.com. We welcome your email questions and comments, dj@artistfirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And it's time for some anarchy.
Oh, all right. A little anarchy. Now and then.
Is welcome by the wisest men.
Yes. Willy Wonka.
You brought me into a Willy Wonka moment. Thank you. Well, that wasn't an anarchy at all. I liked it, though.
Mm-hmm.
In honor of Willy, who was sort of, I would say he would be a free spirit.
Mm. Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about extremes. Let's back up just a tiny, tiny bit. We're going to talk about a quote again from the famous or infamous Jordan Peterson, who's a very interesting fella. I think, like many people who are controversial, he gets a bad rap, and I know a lot. You know, one thing you'll always find when people are making a difference is that you'll have camps that love them or hate them. But leaving all that on the side, I think the quote that we're going to talk about tonight is an interesting one because it sort of lays out a premise that a lot of people believe in. They kind of believe that you're either one way or the other, and we'll go into what those ways are. But if you want to essay the quote, would that be good, or you want me to do it? I know Margaret's voice is a little weak. Mine was terrible last week. Margaret's is terrible a little bit this week, but we'll carry on.
All righty. Life without law remains chaotic, effectively intolerable. Life that is pure law becomes sterile, equally unbearable. The domination of chaos or sterility equally breeds murderous resentment and hatred. Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and we were sold on murderous resentment. because who wouldn't be?
Right. I mean, that's a very truthful statement if you are truthful with yourself.
Right. I mean, anyone who's been to Thanksgiving dinner with family.
Oh, just anyone who gets crossed. I mean, you see it just pops right up.
Yep.
When someone can't do what they really want to do.
Right, or if you have to sit through another one of Uncle Joe's jokes, you want to kill him.
I don't know about that, but...
Well, maybe not. But so anyway, so what I wrote was Anarchy or Tyranny, which is kind of what Peterson is talking about here. Anarchy is no law, right? Anything goes, no law whatsoever. And under those conditions, you say, well, you have maximum freedom, but you also have the least amount of protection, and in essence, no law.
Right.
And then the other one is tyranny. We're and this is the worse than even the worst of the totalitarian, states, nation states, and those totalitarian nation states where every this is almost like a 1984 kind of situation where every waking hour is not yours and is monitored, and you have to obey every law, and your big brother is constantly watching. And both those dystopian nightmares have been written about extensively in fiction, and unfortunately have been realized to some extent under certain types of governments. The anarchy, the lawlessness, means that anybody can do anything to you. Your life is forfeit upon anyone else's whims if they're stronger.
Right.
This is the strong survive and the weak die or are oppressed. And there is no such thing as your own property or your own. It's whoever can come in and just take, smash, grab, and run. And under those conditions, you get nothing. You get chaos, and you get a society which is completely dysfunctional. There's nothing except that which the strongest can hold on for the smallest amount of time, and you have to be ready constantly to fight or to flee. And human beings can't develop anything under those types of circumstances. You're basically at war within the society itself. Each individual is at total war. As we said earlier, in the same breath, if you have nothing but law, you crush all individuality. You crush all potential innovation, because everything is sterile, everything is proscribed. We only do what we are told to do. Every breath is regulated. Every thought, thought crime, right?
Right.
And it's intolerable. And those two, though, seem to be the extremes that people push us towards. They say, well, do you want order, or do you want chaos? Do you want do you want law, or do you want lawlessness? And Peterson is saying, well, they're really two sides of the same coin. And what I wrote was that they are opposites. Yes, they're obviously opposites. And they appear to present a choice. Which side do you want to end up on? Are you on the side of order, or are you on the side of anarchy or chaos? But
Peterson, it was very interesting when he was talking about chaos. Basically saying, chaos is possibility.
Yeah.
And order can be rigidity.
Yeah.
So it's taking the whole of it, not just looking at it one-sidedly as chaos is bad, absolutely random and bad. You're not looking at it in terms of an alternate way, a change, the possibility of change. And order, people think of, okay, we're just ordering things, but it can allow a structure by which the human soul can climb on, but not be constrained by.
Right. I mean, some people refer to chaos as infinite possibility. And in one way, the universe that we live in is in truth a chaotic universe with pockets of order. And if we look at it from the point of view of thermodynamics or quantum mechanics, either one of those two, you will know that the universe is trending down the arrow of time towards more and more disorder. So we live in a chaotic and growing more chaotic space, space-time. However, to keep it more on the philosophical bent, the philosophies of anarchy and the philosophies of tyranny, the philosophies of chaos, if you will, and the philosophies of rigidity, both of them, they seem opposites, but both of them lead to the same thing. They both lead to destruction and death through different mechanisms. Neither one of them has life in them at their true antipodes, at their true extremes, and both of them deny what we are, which is we are spirits incarnate in flesh. We are that which is eternal, brought into the temporal for a period of time, for a space, and we are here not just as objects within a chaotic universe slowly trending towards the heat death of all things. We are imposing in some ways order upon our local portion of the universe, our bodies and our environment, but we're here for experience, which cannot be gotten in any other way. We're here to develop. The thing that we're developing is our ability to choose, and choice by its very nature is coalescing chaos into a form of order through observation, through choice. This is basic quantum mechanics, but it's also basic free will. You must observe the moment of now. You have to be in it. You have to be an entity within the temporal creation, within a body. And in that body, you have the order, the stricture of time. You can't go forward or you can't go back. You're in the absolute moment of now all the time. Realizing that is important, and realizing that in chaos, the order of the moment of now is always now. And there's only two things you can do in that moment. You can observe the moment of now, and then you can decide. You make a choice. What will I do? What will I do? And doing doesn't mean that you do something. What will I do? Maybe I will do nothing but observe. But maybe I make an action. But I also have to do the free will choice of accepting the moment of now and understanding that this is the moment of now. That experience is integral to what we actually are. We're not accountants and lawyers and whatever. We're portions of the infinite placed individually into incarnate forms within a chaotic universe to provide a vehicle for experience which changes us, which gives us the ability to develop and then bring that back to the eternal. Okay, so this is, it's sort of an interesting thing that we are, that if you think about it. But both these philosophies, which can be prosecuted here to some extent, maybe not to the absolute ends of the true nadir of anarchy or the true pinnacle of tyranny. You can't do that really, but you can try hard, and people have, unfortunately. Both of them crush what we really are, which is that we are spirits within flesh that need to express our free will, and we cannot do that in either of these extremes. It becomes, as he says, it breeds murderous resentment. It's kind of we were totally sold on murderous resentment. It's great.
Yes. Murderous resentment and hatred.
Hatred. We were sold on hatred and,
Murderous hatred. I when I had seen that phrase, I was like,
go. Are you okay? Margaret has a little cough. Go. We heard a lot of that over the last week or so on some YouTube channels, but that's awesome. I love the let's. Never mind. Now I'm going chaotic.
Yes, dear. Random. To be able to deal with the randomness as well as the ability to build off of what you set down. So the phrase, the murderous, what was it? Murderous
resentment.
Resentment.
And hatred. Great phrase.
And you've seen, and it seems kind of funny, I guess, but you've seen even small children go into this rage when they can't get what they want, or something happens that they did not want to happen. And usually it's the lament of, I did not give permission for that.
That's true, yeah.
And they get super angry. Now, that's regardless of whether or not it was controllable. Sometimes things just happen, and they didn't want it to happen. And they fall into this murderous resentment. How dare you?
Yeah, it's an offense at a deep nature, and it comes of, it's born of the ego. Because only the ego harbors and lives upon resentment. Oh, I didn't want that. Oh, I wanted it this way, and I'm right, and they're wrong. This is the ego's the well of or the root of murderous resentment and hatred.
Well, my question basically is, why does that happen?
Yeah.
And you're saying it's ego, but I look at that and I'm like, what is it that's actually triggering this level of reaction? And it's a high, I guess if you dealing with animals, it's red zone. Suddenly they just want to kill. And let's face it, you've seen that where people just want to kill the other person. Two guys on the highway, and suddenly one had hit the other, and then suddenly they're in a fist fight. I mean, and you're like, okay, besides the fact that those two are hurt, is anyone else all right, or do we need an ambulance? But what triggers that? And it's not necessarily a fight or flight, although everybody has a tendency to, especially in a car accident, they'll chalk that up to fight or flight. But, you know, you build a tower and it falls down, and then you suddenly start screaming because you didn't want it to fall. So what is it that we're actually seeing happen? And that's where as you said, it seems to be coming from the ego, but why?
Yeah, I think there's, if we step into that venue for a moment, the ego, if you want to look at the driving force between anarchy or tyranny, it's often, I would say it's always, nearly always, the ego. Tyranny is a good one because the ego wants control. Usually the ego wants to control everything around it so that it's always right, or it's always someone else's fault. It's always it's always able to order that which it wants done. And so a tyrannical control or an ego-based idea of control will fly into a rage, or sometimes into just an emotional fit, bursting into tears or whatever, when its way is not, when its will or its desires are not met. And the idea, the push towards tyranny, is that I would never have to experience this emotional disappointment or this emotional cascade, this overwhelming of emotion, if I could just control everything. So the governments writ large. Go ahead. Sorry.
So what you're saying is it's the ego who's basically saying, I can control this.
Yes.
And the minute it's proven it cannot control, it falls into rage.
And I think the other reaction is that it wants to control it even harder. It's I'm reminded of the phrase, the harder you squeeze, the more things will slip through your fingers.
Like sand, yes.
Yes, like sand. But yet, tyrannies oftentimes are never able to learn that lesson. They see the seeds of rebellion. Let's say you have a tyrannical government, you have a tyrannical philosophy that's underlying your government, and you find that people aren't very happy with this, and this is true under almost all despotic states. And there's some pushback, there's some rebellion. Well, it's never, I think that there's maybe no cases, but maybe there is one, but maybe there's no cases in the history of our world where a despotic state said, "Oh yeah, you're right. Gosh, we were just being too mean to everyone. We just should lighten up and smell the roses and let everyone live their life." No, that's usually not the case. Usually the impulse is that, this is for your own good. We're just going to crack down even harder. We'll show you. We'll make an example of these ones, and
we will control you or kill you.
Control you or kill you, right?
Yeah.
And in truth, the human spirit under those conditions becomes indomitable. You'll find the rebellion against tyranny, within the rebellion against tyranny, some of the most evocative and eternal moments of rebellion, of the the Solzhenitsyns of the world, the Bonhoeffers. We talked a little bit about these types of human spirits who, in honor of their spirit and in honor of the freedom and the free will which is intrinsic to the spirit, will stand up. And often their lives are forfeit. Their corporeal, temporal lives, their bodies are forfeit, or they're threatened with their lives. But the realization there, in this case, in that moment, is that the importance or the nobility, I think you said last week under other circumstances, but I think it applies, the nobility of the human spirit and the intrinsic nature of our free will requires the ultimate sacrifice in honor of that. In other words, even if the despot says, I will kill you unless you knuckle under, the thing that strikes fear into any despotic regime is those who say, no, I don't care, kill me. You can't change what I feel about you, what I know is right about you. I know that I am doing this for the nobility of all humankind, of the spirit which is in all of us, and it resonates. So tyrannical philosophies are, or as you said earlier, rigid. There's rigidity at their core. They want to impose control. They come from the ego, but they are because of they're so rigid. They're shatterable. They're like glass, and even the smallest dissension, the smallest witness of the human spirit, the smallest witness of free will, is to be crushed, by the tyranny of the philosophy. However, as is borne out by tens of thousands, if not more, years of history, tyrannical, despotic regimes fall. And they fall because they are not supported by our intrinsic nature, the intrinsic nature of being, the intrinsic nature of the human spirit and of free will, of freedom, which is at our heart and core, which resonates amongst all of us, that even within the despot's heart, even the hardest-hearted despot wants freedom somewhere down there, and they know that they're wrong somewhere down there.
Well, they basically wind up eating themselves. Okay, and especially if the people have pulled away and refuse to participate. Because they are like a cancer in a body, and they continually want to eat, but they give nothing of value back to support the body. So if those that wind up supporting it wind up pulling away, withdrawing their own power,
their consent almost,
they will fall naturally because they cannot survive on their own.
I would say much like the ego cannot survive without the being, actually, even though it thinks it can.
Well, it gives the illusion that it's in control, which is one of the reasons why I think the murderous resentment rises.
I'm glad we got back to the murderous resentment, because that's important here.
Okay. Because whenever a person winds up feeling like they are being attacked, and they're taking it as an attack on their identity, like somebody is trying to strip away who they feel that they are. That's where that rises. It's how dare you try to take away my identity, and it equates that identity with being. Okay, and it's a twisted way of looking at being and identity, because yes, you are a consciousness, but you are not necessarily your ego. You're not necessarily the emotion that is running through you at that point. You're not necessarily the theology or the philosophy that your mind is saying that this is what I'm grasping on and adhering to because this is right.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with that. But when you realize that this is all one of a trigger point where the being looking at it going, wait, you're taking away what I feel is necessary, and without that, then suddenly they have no identity.
Yeah.
You know, without that, I'm the angry person. I'm the angry man. You take away the anger. I'm just a man. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, I would also say, and if you turn the thing around, is that the ego is what the ego is what those who are trying to impose tyranny. Let's stick with tyranny for a while. Those who are trying to impose tyranny are looking to control in the other. And the ego is oftentimes will, even though it may at its root understand that this is injury to its being, latch onto. You'll see folks who will willingly enter into this sort of petty officialdom or into structures where they have some power. You know, the seductive thing for the ego in these rigid tyrannical structures is that it gets an identity out of it, even though it's a very negative, maybe even evil identity. It will cling to that, cling to this to these petty or to these the ability to order everyone around. To you'll see despots oftentimes will have uniforms or will have rigid structures and layers and layers of bureaucracy and government and all these things, because those who are easily seduced by the egoic rewards of these types of structures will fit themselves into them. Now, it's hollow, right? If you look to it and look for true fulfillment, rather, from these types of things, you'll find that they're extremely empty and soul sucking, and that I think you mentioned earlier that they take more than they give back. They don't actually provide any energy. They're sucking the life literally out of you.
It's not that they take more than they give back. They don't give anything. They just keep taking.
Well, exactly. They are a negative drain on your life force. However, the ego is ripe for that sort of thing. It doesn't care as long as it gets the identity out of it and the ability to maybe oppress others and pass on this. I'm oppressed, but I'm going to oppress somebody else kind of thing.
Well, that kind of relationship is all power-centered. So if the ego loves that level of relationship because it believes it always knows where it stands. And it's a dead end, though. That's the other interesting point. It's like, it doesn't matter. Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Because it really is an ultimate dead end.
But yet, I think if you see the ego wrapped up in these things, it's literally looking to take that murderous resentment and harness that energy coming back and almost live off of it, even though it's engendering evil and hatred. It will take that because it doesn't care what kind of attention it gets. Even negative attention is acceptable.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. It's like, why is it only that negative attention is what you're going for? What happened to the other side of that coin?
No. Well, you know what? Hey, we're going to go out to the studio on murderous resentment. We never do that for Scott because we love him. But we're going to come back on the other side and talk more about anarchy and tyranny.
First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief, Dev, is back. And the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, the Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on the X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the Artists First Radio Network.
Listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the Artists First Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And tonight, excuse me, we're talking a little bit about a quote from Jordan Peterson, and I think he occasionally inspires murderous resentment in people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But not tonight. We're not going to dwell upon that. Excuse me. What we're going to talk, we've been talking a little bit about the extremes of anarchy or tyranny, and what the way Peterson phrased it was really life without law or life with pure law. So just to frame our terms here, in this case, law is not, the laws on the books against stealing or something. What we're really talking about here is the strictures that are the mores that are imposed. It's really a morality more than anything else, and life with zero morality, with no strictures whatsoever. The Mosaic law is often referred to as the law, but really it was a moral code. Hammurabi's is a moral code, and so these moral codes, which spring up amongst societies, are there to impose some level of order. And Margaret said it earlier, last half hour, within which the human spirit and will can still operate. So it gives some protections. Let's say we talk about natural law, where what you own is yours, and if someone wants to take it from you, the law says you shouldn't do that. Thou shalt not steal, and that there are penalties for that, and that society will enforce the law. So the law in this case really is a morality, an agreement amongst people within which the framework within which you can still have a good degree of freedom. That's a good law, a good set of mores, and yet not be full anarchy. And we talked a lot about tyranny, which is the opposite end of that, all the way to the end of everything being pure law. And on the other side, where there is no law whatsoever, the injuries to the human spirit and to free will are profound. You say, well, I can do anything I want. But anybody can do anything they want to you. And you cannot guarantee your next breath won't be taken from you. Your life or your property or anything that you value won't be taken from you just because some other is stronger. And this is, the rule of might makes right. That's anarchy, or that there is no structure which cannot be torn down, where all our energies are really spent in either attacking or defending. And in this, I would say, is also egoic, because the ego is always concerned with, in essence, identity through existential crisis. I'm either attacking because I have to defend against some perceived attack or real attack, or I'm being attacked all the time. And there's no law, no order whatsoever. It's really just me. It's a singular ego, which has the right to do anything it wants with no consequences, with no order, complete chaos. But yet there is no way that the free will and the human spirit can be nurtured here, because your very life and the lives of all those around you are subject to this singular chaotic will. It's not a will, a singular chaotic circumstance. Nothing of your. It's almost unimaginable how dystopian, full anarchy is. See, people say, well, it's full freedom. No, it's freedom taken so far that it's no more than atoms mashing into each other in a nuclear reactor. It's going to be fission. It's going to be energy release with destruction everywhere.
Well, how do I say this? Without that structure, you are no longer your own individual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is no individuality under these conditions, because the belief is that there is no boundary.
Right.
It's all mine, or you are completely taken over by something. But your individuality is dissolved, and there is no right for you to be able to exist as yourself. And I am always kind of fascinated by the fact that people want to choose the extreme of that. Like the chaos could be the presentation of different ways that you can make a decision, different ways to take a path. But to absolutely insist on no way whatsoever, how are you going to continue in your life?
Yeah.
Because at that point, you really do need to take from someone else in order to exist. To say, okay, well then we'll have nothing but pure law, and these are the rules, and it's only going to be this way. And the human being is a creature that enjoys the possibilities. It looks for options. That's core to a person's creativity. And the main reason why we're down here is to participate in that creativity, which is life itself. So taking away your individuality means that your creativity is impossible to engage in. And why that doesn't trigger murderous hatred, I don't understand.
I think it does. In anarchical societies that approach full anarchy, especially if they are devolving from something which had some structure, you always see, destruction. You see all prior artwork, all prior structures, all prior laws and rules and regulations are torn down, but not to be, not to be renewed and not to be reformed, but just to be nothing. So
destroyed.
It's destroyed, but it's the ultimate nihilism is anarchy. You're really looking to deny all others any structure, any particular, as you mentioned, individuality. You're really looking at the supremacy of the unitary individual. Everything is me, and all things are as I would like them to be, which is just to be flat and destroyed and not one stone upon another. This is true anarchy. Destroys all that is around it and refuses all efforts to build. There's no structure. If you want something, you take it, and if you have something, it will be taken from you. There's no thing which can be called your own. You see in anarchical societies with some overlay of tyranny, you see that all property belongs to some nameless, nebulous individual, the state or something of that nature. But true anarchy, there is no such thing as property. Nothing, no effort ascribes back to the individual. No thing which is done can be said to be done of free will. It's almost all random. It truly moves towards a full chaotic existence, which is going to be, nasty, brutish, and short, to quote Hobbes. And the human nature, spirit, and will rebel against this, because free will, by its nature, has the necessity to recognize the individuality of itself and of the other, and even free will in a vacuum recognizes the individuality of itself and the ability for a decision to be made in the moment of now. The human spirit recognizes its own being as something which is precious as well as unique, and separate from the creation, separate from form. It is consciousness separate from form, within which form or within which many things can be realized. But yet, the purity of consciousness is an individual consciousness, an expression of individuality from that which is all. So, in the case of anarchy, it attempts to deny all that and to force it into a you're no better than this molecule over here. You can't be considered anything. You're not even a you.
Well, it doesn't give credence to the fact that there is a consciousness that does exist.
Exactly.
And that's what I find fascinating, because it wants to say consciousness exists the way it wants it.
Right.
And you sit there and you go, no. There's so much more to who I am. And to give, because you must agree to it, to be taken over by this. And if you don't agree, then they take nothing from you. They may try to take your life, but even then, it's like you don't know who a human being actually is. And so it's this empty shadow at that point. Now, when the balance is struck
between these two,
where there is a structure, but it's fluid and flexible. Okay, it's the rigidity that will kill, and if you are in pure chaos, there is no structure at all. It's just everything is around you on the ground.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's just flat land.
It's a denial of reality, in fact, true anarchy.
So, to understand that you, as a consciousness, can build in this space and in this time. The easiest analogy is to think about you have a set of blocks strewn across the playroom floor, and a child comes in and wants to build something. A creative spark's there, and they like what they see. So they begin to, like most children, they start building a tower. It's always a tower.
Yes, notice that.
And it goes up, and then it comes down. And then it goes up again, and then it gets knocked down. Now, if there's more than one child, once the tower is up, they all compete to try to be the first one to knock it down.
Interestingly, yes.
Well, but that's, if you look at that, just like, isn't that interesting? So there's a part of humanity that just, even though it starts building something and likes it, just wants to knock it all down.
Yes.
And depending upon their age, most of the time they each make their own tower. If they're old enough to begin to be able to participate one with the other, then they can build together. But that's a big that's a big step.
Yeah, that's a big step, yes.
But maybe understanding that the creative force is there. You want to be able to build structures, but you also want to be able to say, okay, I want something else. Let me try something else.
Yeah.
So if you can do both, because they've learned so much in this process of building and destroying and rebuilding and destroying,
yeah,
and then expanding their concept of how to build.
This is a microcosm of a society which is neither anarchy nor tyranny, but yet, if you draw this rather than as a timeline or as a line, with one side as anarchy and the other side as tyranny, but more like a triangle. If we talk about a triangle, where in essence the the corners of each corner is something which you want to avoid. You don't want to be fully into anarchy. You don't want to be fully into tyranny, and nor do you want to be somehow a full just an ego, just some part of creation. Just something in the middle which has nothing. The middle of the triangle, or to as your society forms itself, as the individual associates itself into a society, the middle of that triangle is the place where you have a balance of structure and of freedom, and you recognize that there is form, which is sort of the top of the triangle. You fully everything just formed, and nothing, no individuals at all. There's nothing in the incarnation at all. It's just the universe, the clock, Einstein's clock, if you will, the clockwork universe. That the being incarnates into the middle of this time-based space. Maybe it has more dimensions, but just we can just imagine it as this sort of triangle. And in that space, to nurture the spirit which is incarnate into the temporal, you need to have a balance of form, because you need a form here. You can't be formless. You need some structures. You need to be able to build upon one block upon another. You need the freedom to knock it down and build it back, and knock it down and build it back. But yet to understand that you don't have the freedom to knock down things which are not yours, or that your time, which is limited and precious because it is limited, it gives you a certain degree of I'll say ownership, but it's really a certain degree of investment in that which you put your precious time towards. Once you start to see that this begins to self-assemble itself into a structure of sorts, where the incarnate individual, the spirit incarnate in form, has certain, we'll call them rights, but really it's certain properties. It wants to continue. It wants to be defended. It wants to have its will honored, but yet also understand that it can't injure, it can't impose its will upon another, because there is an equality amongst beings in this. There's not one form that is better than another form.
Are you speaking of a fact that you have individuals that are interacting with one another, or are you talking about the form that they're creating?
I'm talking about being incarnate in form, and then of course you can create forms yourself. But the point is that this sort of self-assembles. If you have a structure which is completely anarchical, then nothing can be in form, really. You don't have any way to incarnate in form, because it's all chaos. If it's completely it's all mush. If it's completely tyrannical, there's almost no point. It becomes just, you're a form, but you can't do anything. You're a clockwork. You're completely unstructured. And then the plane, if you will, the existence, the beingness of the universe is just it's just creation. It's just moving along in itself. It doesn't have any free will of its own. It just kind of clocks along. Then you put the individual, the incarnate spirit, into form. You have to put it into form. So form is necessary, but it can't be so restrictive and so bound up in a tyrannical rule-based law that it can do nothing. You must give it the ability to choose, to build new forms, little forms that are yours, to tear down, because tearing down is important sometimes, and to express, to experience, to both see the other, have relationships with each other, other incarnate forms, but to realize that your will and theirs have an equality of spirit, of primacy, and that any injury you do to the other is as like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. You are not any more special than anyone else. And so your will and your law your I want to do this is equally balanced by they want to do that. So you have to come to an accommodation, to a compromise. And this is the kind of structure which then can grow into something you can build a society upon, but yet not injure or not terribly injure the human spirit, and not terribly injure or constrain the free will.
Yes, you do not. The minute the free will finds out it's not free, that's when the unrest starts.
You almost said it.
Well,
it's true. It's true. When you find, and I think we said this earlier, but when you find those who are seeing that their spirits and their free wills are being trammeled and injured, the human being, the being within, rebels. It says no.
Yeah. No, once it realizes that your freedoms have been taken away, and really taken away to the point where you are not allowed to have a contrary choice, that's usually when everyone stops and looks at each other going, what just happened? I don't remember doing this. Did you do this? Who did this?
Who did this? And then you want to make it right. You want to, this murderous resentment and hatred is against those who would impose these anarchical or tyrannical structures upon the other.
Exactly. Anyone who is restricting the freedom, and it's again something that you see that is natural to a human being. And that freedom is something that was God-given.
Indeed. We're no longer free.
Okay.
So you go ahead.
All right. We've reached the end of our hour. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.